Hello and happy holidays on this day, the 21st of December, 2025. I think I will call this video Catching Up with Dex, or maybe Catching Up with You. But as I hear from a lot of my friends and clients from time to time, um, I have a good number of people that go back with me quite a few years. And I hear from them once in a while. They tell me I'm watching your videos, and so they ask some questions. So I'm gonna try to answer a few questions and fill you in on me first of all, and just how I'm living and enjoying my life, because it's good to be as relatable as possible and really connect. So here it is, and I'm going to ramble a bit. I'll tell you that right now. This is going to be kind of rambling, but after I'm done talking about my life, so you feel like you can know me. In fact, you will know me from this, I think, a bit, and then I will explain some new and some basic principles, and talking about how I'm working with my very successful uh, counseling practice. And I've called it um, therapeutic spiritual counseling. Yeah, I'm going to refer to notes here because at 70 years old, memorization is not my forte. You know, it's when I'm in session, I'm right there, present, sharp as a tack. It's never uh, 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 relevant in a session in any way. And funny thing, when it comes to that, I can recall every little detail that has ever come up in our sessions together, as my clients notice. But outside of that, if I can go into the kitchen and by the time I get there, remember what I went there for, it's kind of a moral victory. So anyway, I've been back here in New Jersey, where I'm from originally. I've been back here from Davis, California since 2016. I'm extremely happy here and extremely happy in my life. But I have to tell you, I love Davis. Beautiful place, wonderful place. This is also very wonderful right now. So I'm really enjoying my life. Starting with, for the sake of discussion, a lot of joy and fulfillment in my thriving practice, both in giving sessions and in mentoring and training clients who are beginning to show or have been showing quite a bit of success in establishing their own practices using my techniques and principles. And just very quickly about that, when I mentor somebody, and I'm not going to talk very much about my mentoring, how that works right now, just very briefly. It's one-on-one, it's over video, and I will ensure, and you will ensure, that you understand all the techniques, how to run them, and why they make sense, the principles behind them. However, it will also be of prime importance that you feel free and comfortable with changing things here and there, changing the wordings, not necessarily following it to the letter, but doing what you come to recognize as being appropriate in that moment with what is manifesting with the person in front of you. When I mentor or train somebody, the idea is they find their own voice. They find to recognize in themselves their own way of being and doing, and using my techniques, but not afraid to recognize that your own ability to devise something or change something, or just instinctively know what to say or do in the course of a session. There's no doubt in my mind, in my heart, I know that, as I say in another video, great spiritual healers are not produced. They're not made. They're born. And if you have this passion to do that, then you can do very, very well. And you will. And I firmly believe that anybody can be brilliant at whatever they're passionate about. And I know I'm very passionate about what I do. And I feel like anybody who does this kind of work should feel like they're the best in the world. That's how I feel about myself. But I also feel anybody doing this work should feel entitled to feel that way, which doesn't mean that you should hold yourself to being error-free or mistake-free or perfect. That's not even relevant. Very often when I'm training or mentoring somebody and they're relaying back to me what happened in a session, and sometimes there will be a question, a possible mistake or fumble or whatever, and I have to get across to them that I'm marveling because they've always gotten the result. They've always gotten helped the person to arrive exactly where they needed and wanted to be, and resolved whatever was manifesting for them that they felt moved to address. And I understand the student-mentor relationship. They're looking to me for approval or correction, but the most important thing is recognizing in them and granting them to please recognize in themselves just how wonderful they are and how wonderful the work they're doing is. And yes, I can absolutely provide the most amazing techniques, the most amazing tools, and they're not even that complex. And you don't have to memorize things. You can work off a sheet. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so that gives me great gratification to see how well that's going. And it feels wonderful to see how my clients are just winning, how surprised they are at how well every session works out and where they arrive at the end of the session. It's truly marvelous how good they feel, how good it feels to be them, as they are so much more about here and so much more present, so much more the way you were meant to be, that feeling that you've arrived so much more at how you were meant to be. It's wonderful to see that happen. It's just the best. So other than that, what else I'm enjoying in my life, all the things that make me happy here back in New Jersey, in my life right now, my wonderful continuing relationship with my girlfriend, my beautiful goddess, Liana Lay. So grateful for what we have. There is nothing that matters more than love. As I say in many videos, the primal problem, the primal anxiety that everyone suffers through is the feeling that they're being left out, they're not being included, they're not being loved, they're not being welcomed and included in the intimate us that spiritually we all are. And there we're talking about love. Love is what existence really is. And it's always what we're trying to solve is misgivings and feelings and doubt that we're included in that intimacy. That's largely and ultimately what we all need to process. And it's very, very processable, layer by layer. And I see that growth and that wonderful happiness, satisfaction, and peace in my clients as they come to recognize more and more of that love, that acceptance, that wonderful feeling of being part of all that is present. So that's number one I wanted to mention about my personal life, is this wonderful long-term relationship ongoing with my wonderful, beautiful girlfriend, Liana Lay. And then there's also how wonderful it is to have my son and grandson nearby. We spend a lot of time together, more than once a week in general. We do things together, have them here. My 5-year-old grandson is just, well, if you have children or grandchildren, I don't have to tell you. It's the most wonderful thing. They're so amazing. When your children are small, and then again when your grandchildren are small, it's just the best time in your life, truly. So that's quite a blessing. Um, and then there is my loyal companion and essentially my master, Bobby, who's in a few short weeks will be 20 years old. My Maine Coon Bobby. He's really the star of the show. It's his world. I just live in it. And they say dogs have masters and cats have staff. Well, I'm his staff. And sometimes he finds it convenient to let me think that I'm in charge, but I'm not fooled. And also another thing I greatly enjoy is playing basketball. I'm still playing basketball 2 or 3 times a week at age 70. I still have a good 3-point shot, and I play a damn good tenacious defense. Sometimes I do have to catch my breath, take a moment, but then I recover. I'm right back in it, and I'm the oldest surviving player from my group of guys going back 30 years, still playing together, and like I said, I'm the oldest surviving continuing player at 70 years old. There's a few guys close to my age, but then I'm up against a lot of guys that are roughly my son's age. I can keep up pretty good. That's very satisfying and just a lot of fun and a great way to stay in shape. So that's another thing part of my life. And then there's playing my bass guitar. I'm not going to replace Jaco Pastorius or Paul McCartney or name your favorite bass player, Stanley. I'm not going to replace any of those guys anytime soon. Yeah, I'm not kidding myself, but it feels really cool to have that to do. If you enjoy playing a musical instrument, it's just a wonderful thing to do. I pick it up for a little while every morning for the enjoyment, but also to kind of tune myself up neurologically. I have 3 beautiful bass guitars. I'm going to show you a couple of them. Because I'm having fun with this video and catching up with me. This is my beautiful Ibanez 5-string hollow body electric bass guitar. What a sound this thing has. When I went to the Sam Ash store, I know that Sam Ash is essentially out of business, and I played this thing. I had to have it, I traded in my Fender Jazz Bass, which I really love, because this thing basically has the sound I've always been looking for. Beautiful sound. And then I'll also show you the standard of the industry, so to speak, when it comes to bass guitars. My beautiful Fender Precision Bass. Creamsicle orange. Look at that color. Isn't that beautiful? I think it kind of has a 50s feel to it, being that color. I know you can't hear this, but it's just a piece of art, just a beautiful thing. My third bass, which I won't bother bringing over here, third bass, not as a baseball term, is also a very beautiful 5-string electric Ibanez with all kinds of fancy bells and whistles on it. I may be being a little indulgent here, so be it. And also I was going to mention what I really enjoy in my present life, besides all these things, is local hikes and nature walks. There's a path called the Riverwalk nearby here. And then there's the Watchung Reservation. I've been hiking through the Watchung Reservation for more than 50 years. It's a beautiful, kind of a sacred place that was home to the Native Americans for ages, and named in their language, Watchungs, which in the Lenape Indian language means big hills. Wonderful, wonderful place to take hikes. And they also have a Trailside Science and Nature Museum, or as my grandson calls it, the Lizard House, which is also wonderful to see. So that's my current life. It's a beautiful life. I'm very happy in it. I feel like I can have whatever I really want, whatever I want. I feel like I do have whatever I want. So I'm blessed. I feel like we all have that power and ability. It's just a matter of recognizing it and not holding in place any attitudes that get in the way, which is a lot of what the work I do with you in sessions is about, is processing out those restricting, limiting attitudes and the anxieties that inspire them as some kind of solution to try and hold off anxieties, which they don't. Okay, so now getting to what I wanted to say, a few things about how the sessions work and what the principles are, which is really to say what life is about and the qualities of the spirit. See, I think all the work we do is to become more present, to feel and have connection and love, and feel happy and recognize how great it is to be present, how great it is to be you, and that involves recognizing, processing out and digesting the fears and anxieties within us and the attitudes we take on to try to protect ourselves from those fears and anxieties, and even the personalities or personas or identities, whatever you want to call them, that we take on as solutions to feeling unsafe to fully be present as yourself. These are all substitute presences. You are always at your best when you don't need to hold up some facade. The ways of being that we take on are all things to unravel so that we can be at our best, which is to simply be present, have all that is present, and be comfortable with it. Rather than being something, to simply be. There are phrases like being the best version of yourself. Well, the best version of yourself is not a version at all. It's the underlying natural you without any affectations taken on. And so that's a lot of what this work is about. And the most important thing to recognize is feelings. I know that a lot of you have worked with me, taken a similar path through certain beliefs and practices that overemphasized thoughts and principles and projected constructs of the mind and spirit, ways of looking at it, organizing it, defining and categorizing, and coming up with theories and quote-unquote logic about the mechanics of how people react and so forth. But 90% of that, of thought, is an attempt to resolve or work around what you're feeling. Feelings are the basis. And all you need to do about feelings is allow them. Feel what you feel, have it. There's no work involved in that. And if you allow whatever feeling is presenting through you, if you allow that to just be felt, it doesn't last. It dissolves. It's what I call spiritual digestion. And there's so much time wasted treading water, coming up with clever intellectualizing about the mind and reactions and things like that. It's mostly a waste of time. All you need to do is have the feelings that you're feeling and then deconstruct all the false solutions you've come up with to get around experiencing what you're feeling, or try to push back on it, or philosophize over your feelings. None of those things really work because the feelings don't go away. The feelings need to have their expression. And it's the simplest and easiest thing in the world. Enough about that. That's what I call spiritual digestion. I've made more than one video about that. So that is essential to my work. And another thing I would like to make better known is that when you engage in any spiritual practice or even religion and almost any other area of life, we tend to see things the way we want to see them. We tend to find what we expect to find. I've talked at length about my previous experience when I was trained and involved in the practices and beliefs of Scientology. And from what I've studied and learned, not only from my own experience, but from some people who used to be involved, who contributed to the ideas, to the techniques, which were later plagiarized, you could say, or just Mr. Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, kind of took ownership of everything everybody ever contributed and claimed that it all came from him. But I think by now we all know better than that. But anyway, one of these people who left, splintered off to devise his own methods, was Dennis Stevens was his name. He came up with something called TROM, which stood for the resolution of mind. I don't resonate with his techniques or principles for the most part, but I'm sure it may well be right for some other people. That's good. He said one thing that is very well stated. He came from a Scientology background, and one of the words in Scientology that is used, the word that's used to define all our mental debris, all our mental misdirections and unwanted feelings and sensations and tendencies and attitudes and all of that. The word for that in Scientology is your case, okay? And the way he put it was, case takes on the appearance you expect it to take. What he means by that is, coming from his Scientology background, where you get indoctrinated in the idea that there were these recorded incidents that explain everything undesirable that's within you. And they call these recordings engrams in Scientology. And then Scientology goes on to claim to clear you of all of those things, the state that they call clear. And supposedly when you reach this state, you have none of those mental or emotional issues anymore. But then, being that that's never truly the case, I did a video about that a long time ago. L. Ron Hubbard, in the like, I think around 1966 or so, he always needed to come up with a next thing. So he had something else which was supposedly a spiritual higher level. I don't believe in levels of mood, levels of being, spiritual levels. All of that is a misleading sales pitch as far as I'm concerned. Nothing makes you better than everybody else in any way. It's just about resolving what's getting in your own way. The rest is, if you have any need or desire to be better than other people, then you have your own anxieties about feeling less than other people to process. And I'm sure we all do have a bit of that. That's part of the human condition, I suppose. But anyway, he also, besides always needing to claim and research towards higher quote-unquote levels, there's also a need to come up with a new product for people to pay for and generate more income and keep people active and submissive in his Scientology kingdom. And so then these what were called operating thetan levels, OT levels, which where thetan was basically his word for spirit, spiritual being. And he went into this whole direction of explaining why you had so many problems emotionally and otherwise that were still unresolved, although you were supposedly clear, was because you were infested with other spiritual beings and all these undesirable feelings and attitudes and sensations and misgivings and whatever weren't truly yours, but you had to more or less recognize and exercise thousands of what, in his term, body thetans is the word used, that you had to go through all kinds of time spent and money spent in Scientology techniques addressing those things. And of course there's a falsity in that, because the only things there are to address are your own thoughts and feelings. And to mischaracterize them as anything else makes whatever relief you're going to get ephemeral and not lasting. But anyway, the point I'm making is what Dennis Stevens was saying, and when he said case takes on the appearance you expect to take. If you get indoctrinated in these Scientology ideas of engrams and body thetans, you become invested in this. You become interested and excited and enthused, and you want it to be true. You want to be right. You definitely don't want to have to confront like you've made some horrible mistake and you've been gullible and you've been misled and you've been so wrong about what you've invested yourself in so thoroughly. Like in politics and religion, where you'll start doing the same thing, essentially like a confirmation bias, where you'll see things the way that justifies and reinforces what you want to believe. So you'll find what you're expecting to find. That's why in my work, in my principles, I want to refrain from giving you something to project, from categorizing or defining your own feelings, attitudes, ways of being as fitting into some picture, some indoctrination, that it comes from this or it comes from that, because then it becomes a bit artificial. Then instead of just seeing and feeling things as they really are to you, you're shoehorning them to fit what you're expecting to find, what you want to find, what you're hoping to find, what you are invested in finding when you subscribe to a belief. So in the work I do, we want to discourage getting any pre-digested, pre-categorized, predefined explanations for whatever you experience or feel. The more genuine and direct it is in your own terms, the easier, more efficiently, and the more fully you will process and digest what is within you. So all these presented concepts, regardless of where they're from, Scientology is only one example. Anything that predefines what you're going to experience. For instance, you could take up the subject of past lives. Sometimes past lives do come up in our sessions, but I'm never directing a person towards anything specific like that. And sometimes I notice, because many of my clients come to me because they're familiar with my familiarity with Scientology and they've done it. They feel like, I understand where they're coming from and how things have been defined for them and what they've been through. And so in those cases in particular, it's important to help them to shed, the projections and just let things come to them as they naturally do, without the forced definition. Scientology had a lot of definitions, as other cults and religions do. And it's not just that they're giving you a definition, but they're defining how to think about these things, how to think about the spirit and the mind. And these definitions, that's, for instance, because Scientology comes to me because I spend so much time, I use that as an example, what they call the reactive mind and the bank and all those things. It's not how it really is. There's no structure to the mind. There's none of Freud's id, ego, and superego. That was completely superficial and completely just a thought, just an idea, and there's no organization to your mind. Other than you have things getting in the way of other things, you have ideas and beliefs that support and enforce other attitudes, feelings, and beliefs and ways of being, but they're yours and they're unique to you and they're not the same as anybody else's. So that's why any of these generic pro forma approaches, projecting what to find or what sequence of levels or whatever to go through, do not work anywhere as well as promoted, because they're generic, and you're not generic. There are no generic people. Everybody's existence and experience and feelings are specific to them, and they need to be addressed that way. It is not anybody's job to tell you what to think about you, how to think about you, or your own emotional, mental, or spiritual material. It's to be taken as it is, exactly as you see and feel it. And that works wonders. Especially the clients who can really tell you about that are all the ones who have been through some of these other practices, knowledgeism, Scientology, and God knows how many other things. And in doing this, one of the continuing evolutions of my work, because it does change, I do evolve, I see things clarify, and then my practice, my ideas, and my techniques grow with these new observations and recognitions. And over the past few years, what has become increasingly present in my practice is recognizing the thoughts and feelings I'm getting from you. Telepathy is the common word used. It's feeling your feelings and noticing your thoughts. And sometimes they're so present for me. And sometimes it's very helpful for me to reflect back to you what has not crystallized for you. You're getting a sense of certain things. And I can help you with that by telling you what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling. It's coming from you. It's not my opinion. It's not an interpretation. It's actually what is emanating from you. It could be a feeling, a thought, an idea, an experience that's starting to break into your consciousness. And I will, when it is helpful, give you some clues. Tell you. And sometimes a client will say, "What do you make from that?" Where it's getting, and I will help them piece it together, and then it opens up more for you. But I'm not projecting any indoctrinated thoughts or ideas of what's supposed to be there. I'm just noticing how things are presenting through you. And that's an ability I don't doubt we all have, no more or less than anybody else. So like doing this kind of connection with people, this spiritual work, so intimately in a sense, with individuals for hours every day for years and years, it's like drilling, it's like training, it's like developing this more and more. And it wasn't like I ever had the intention to do this work this way. It's just how it has grown and evolved. And it certainly makes things work so much better to bring out what you needed to recognize in yourself. I can say with supreme confidence, whatever you come to me for, that you need to change in terms of the ways you're being and feeling that you don't want to, in terms of how you want to be and feel. I can say with supreme confidence, yes, we can and will accomplish exactly that, and no less than that, fully. Of course, what I can't tell you in advance is what will come between you and that will arise to be processed to fully get there, what we will need to process and transcend, how many feelings of trauma and shock from things you've been through will need to process, how many defensive attitudes you have adopted that act to disengage from things you're afraid of feeling or experiencing, that will need to unravel so that you can have and process what is arising through you fully. Personas, attitudes, ideas, beliefs, and so forth. That I can't tell you immediately, only one by one as these things arise through the sessions. And each time we do this, we process the next layer. It's like coming out of a snow globe, a little world, into a bigger world. And it's a wonderful feeling, and it's true growth. And it can be rather mind-boggling, and just this wonderful feeling of peace and wonder that comes with it. And then you'll need time to allow that to fully settle out. And your life changes. How you feel changes. And that telepathic reflecting. I don't really like the word telepathic. It is a misnomer, and I will explain why, as I have before. Because T-E-L-E, tele, in front of anything, telecommuting, whatever, it means over a distance. And what we're doing in doing this work in a session is doing away with the false projection that there is such a thing as distance. Distance is the primary characteristic of the physical world, which can be said to be a projection. And we could talk about that in terms of quantum physics. And in quantum physics, there's the thought that really is the basis of it all when they say the observer affects the experiment. Everything is a matter of what we create and project. And spiritually, truly, there is no distance between us. There's this wonderful usness. There is all here. There is no there. But the physical world, the material world, imposing as its primary characteristic distance, separation. Okay? That's a lot of what we need to process. Feelings of distance and separation from others, which make us feel abandoned and rejected. And it's a shocking feeling, and it's something we're fighting that we can always process more and more. But again, where I'm getting at is what we're calling telepathy. What happens in a session is sort of a pulling back the curtain on that false projection of distance. So it's not telepathy. There's no distance over which it happens. It's this recognition that all is right here and all is now. And so your thoughts and feelings, they're right here. We are right here. There's no there. Your thoughts and feelings don't have some distance to travel to be in my presence for me to notice. That's sort of the spiritual mode on which we're operating that helps make the sessions such a wonderful success. And again, what gets in the way of processing things fully, exactly as they are uniquely for you, is the pre-indoctrination of any sort of psychology or spiritual practice or what have you that tries to define the mind and the spirit and what there is to find spiritually. That kind of needs to go out the window so that you're not projecting what you expect to find and what you're hoping to find because of whatever you've spiritual thought or paradigm you have found interesting and invested yourself in. What's genuine is the one unique way in which you feel and experience things, and recognizing that, granting you full permission and inviting you to recognize that and have that exactly as it is for you, without the superficial filter of some given explanation or characterization of it. That just gets in the way. Exactly as things manifest and appear for you naturally is the key to processing, resolving whatever you need to process and resolve to get to where you want to be spiritually, emotionally, and every other way. And what powers all the wonderful results, you go to my website, look at those testimonials. You got to go, wow. I go, wow, I'm impressed. It's as wonderful for me in that moment as it is for you that moment of wow. I'm feeling it as much as you are, and I'm loving it as much as you are. And what drives your progress, what drives you arriving at these greater and greater levels of magnitudes of being you fully, have all that comfort, presence, delight in life, feeling of power over your existence. What powers all of this is your own spiritual drive, your passion to become as you should, as you aspire to be. Because, I mean, that passion is accessible, it is noticeable, it is presenting well enough that you found me and invested in our work together. And that's why in the session it succeeds. What I have is tools and techniques. And of course, really, really present understanding, perception, empathy, love, and just the overwhelming passion to assist you in getting what you want and how you want to be. Okay? What makes it work primarily, you can almost say entirely, with what I have to offer, with my techniques and tools and presence. Most important thing is this drive you have to get there. And that's why we can start every session without knowing what we're going to do and just ask you what's happening for you. How are you feeling? What comes to mind? And what I call your spiritual compass, the natural instinct to present whatever is most relevantly getting in the way of how you want to be, will arise to be noticed, whatever that feeling or attitude is. There's no work involved in coming up with what we need to address next. It's presenting all the time. You don't have to worry about what am I going to think of to take up in the next session, and neither do I. It's what needs to present always does. So when I train people, when I mentor my student practitioners, I tell them, very important thing to understand is take whatever you're getting. Take whatever you're getting in this session. If the client is presenting some resistance to processing something, then what's to take up in that moment is not that something to process. It's the anxiety and fear of that resistance, and maybe the specific attitude that they are implementing in that resistance. And unraveling that, whatever is presenting is exactly what needs to present. It's the very next door to open to the next bigger world of you. And I think with that, that'll serve to catch us up with the present, with the current, of catching up with me, catching up with you, and how we can achieve or work together so that you can achieve heights of being that you aspire to, that you know is the direction of how you are meant to be, how you are meant to be. And I am more than honored, quite honestly, thrilled to take that ride with you, to have your trust, your acceptance, your respect, to allow me to help guide you through what is manifesting through you, and to help you to have these wonderful changes. It's more than an honor. It's certainly my passion. Thank you so much. And if you haven't worked with me yet, or you haven't worked with me lately, you are so invited. Please feel free, now or whenever it feels right for you. Looking forward to the next meeting.